Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you're doing well, taking care of yourselves, and hope you had an excellent Halloween. I did all of my my Halloween festivities the weekend before. That's when I put on the costume, so that when actual Halloween came around, I was just kind of relaxing because I had done all of my my fun stuff the weekend prior. Before we get into the show today, I just wanted to say real quick for a show I went to. I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the last episode, but I was fortunate enough to be able to get to see Weird Al Yankovic at Carnegie Hall the couple days before Halloween. And it is going to go down in my personal memory bank of top 5 shows I have ever seen, and this is including the other time I saw Weird Al Yankovic when he was on the Mandatory Fun Tour. This show was incredible, not just because it was at Carnegie Hall and I was able to snag some very comfortable and excellent view box seats, but this was just a delight of an evening. It was the return of the Ill-Advised Self-Indulgent Vanity Tour. So this was a show for like hardcore fans, and having loved Weird Al Yankovic since I was 13 and discovered the album Running with Scissors, and then went back and listened to everything he's ever done and have listened to everything he's done since. I'm like the target fan base for this tour. And Emo Phillips, the comedian, was the opening act, who was incredibly hilarious. I had not seen him live. I'd seen a bunch of his specials and videos from a while ago, but if there's any other like comedian that should have another special, I think it's Emo. I really enjoyed his set. Just amazing joke writer, and you could tell just like how much it meant to everybody on stage, not just Emo, but Weird Al and his band, to be playing at such a prestigious venue. And the set list, if I could have picked my favorite deep cuts and original songs from Weird Al's catalog, I heard all the ones I wanted to hear, and of course saw tons of people dressed up in Al in Hawaiian shirts. Everyone was super excited to be there. It was like I was like amongst my people, the slightly nerdy weird types. So it was truly memorable, spectacular experience, and I will, of course, see Al every time he comes through town, but I want to make sure that everyone knows how great that is. And also, if you happen to have Stitcher Premium, the first leg of that tour, every show, is available for you to listen as well. That's not just that's just for any other Weird Al fans out there who didn't know that. But now to get into the our show today. My guest on the show today is actor Vince Eustace. Vince, I met when I was in college as a theater major at Towson University. He was a couple years ahead of me, and he was of the class ahead they were like the class that was like getting cast in lots of the shows and doing like very cool stuff. And I was like the one who I was like looking at them as something to aspire to. Like, okay, I'm gonna really throw myself into this, and I want to get to where they're doing and be on stage doing really meaty, interesting parts. And Vince, you might know him from his appearances on the sketch show Inside Amy Schumer. But he's a guy that I always kind of vibed with when we were in school, and I haven't seen him or spoken to him in a long time. And so I was very excited to get to chat with this. If you listen to my earlier episode a while back with comedian Brandon Brody, another Towson University theater alum, I sort of like I love to kind of like revisit that time and to like connect with people that are doing the thing. And Vince is definitely one of those guys. He's a really down to earth, funny dude, and I really enjoyed getting to catch back up with him. There's a lot of very interesting and practical advice in this as well for the craft of auditioning for any actors or aspiring actors who might happen to listen to this. So if you enjoyed this, definitely make sure you check out Vince on Inside Amy Schumer and look to him for your casting decisions. And if you enjoyed this and want to listen to more, uh, between awesome and disaster, you can go to awesomedisaster.com, get links to everywhere you can get the show. And if anybody is listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you want to leave us a 5-star review and leave us a review, that would help boost the show and the algorithm, help other people know that this is a cool show worth checking out. And if you hate me, that's fine too, but just be very specific in how you do it so that people can read it and know that this could possibly be worth their time. I think Roger Ebert. I remember reading some reviewer, your reviewers fought on like film criticism, where it's like even if you don't like something, you should describe it in a way so someone could tell if they like it or not. So I accept all forms of feedback on this show, but if you want to give us a rating in Apple Podcasts, that lets people know that this is a cool show worth their time. So thank you, folks, for being here, and let's talk to Vince Eustace.
LA's pretty big and sprawling, but it's definitely Los Angeles.
Sure, yeah, that's I spent some time in LA for like real time just a couple months ago. My wife and I took a road trip from San Francisco down to San Diego, and I finally like because I've been watching like TV and movies get set in Los Angeles my whole life, but I have no sense of the city, and now I have sort of kind of like a gist of it. Like it's funny how everything in LA is either like a 20-minute drive or a 4-day walk.
Yeah, it's crazy. And to go back to what you're saying about things being filmed in LA, like so many classic movies that I grew up on were in LA, and I don't even realize. And then I'll like watch them again now and kind of have a sense of where they are and be like, oh, that's where that is. That's that spot.
Mm-hmm.
And Clueless, I know. I think her dad was like, oh, everything takes 20 minutes to drive to, which is kind of true. Like it doesn't matter if it's a mile away or like 20 miles away. It always takes 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm amazed. That really blew my mind about the city because it's like if something's close, traffic will make up the difference. But if something's far away, it'll magically be like less. There magically will be less traffic. Like I was lucky enough to avoid, like just because I was staying out in Santa Monica by the beach, so I was lucky enough to avoid like the 405 a bunch. But then like I just sort of I guess it would be similar to New York. Like you think about like long. I've heard this joke a bunch. Like long distance relationships or in LA would be like like Santa Monica to like Highland Park or something.
Yeah, yeah. I saw someone did a map where they took basically like Southern California, like they cut Los Angeles into like the boroughs of New York, and they were like comparing each neighborhood to like a borough. And I don't know if it's true or not, but a lot of people who had lived in both New York and LA were like, that's actually pretty accurate.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it kind of is. And to your point about like classic like Hollywood movies, for example, my wife's like super into Pretty Woman, so we had to go through Beverly Hills and do that loop. And then like I was driving, I was like, how could this happen? There's just like there's tons of traffic in this narrow, and the street is so narrow. That's not realistic.
Oh yeah, like everyone. I remember in college, I used to watch 24 all the time, and everyone was like, "There's no way Jack Bauer can get around Los Angeles that quickly," and I didn't realize it at the time at Towson. And then when I got here, it's like, "Oh no, yeah, we'd all be dead."
I feel the same way about New York. I lots of times when I watch shows set in New York now, especially because like lots of times they will just put up like a fake subway stop if they need one, or
Mm.
like if you're shooting on the lot. Because I went and did the Warner Brothers tour and I saw like all the fake New York bus signs, bus stops they can make, and subways they can make. You start thinking like, oh, okay, so they got on like the F train at they got on the F train in like the Lower East Side, and now they're in the Bronx, but that train doesn't go to the Bronx, and then that you see them get like you're like you can't get to where you're going based on that train. Whole movie like that will completely take me out of a
Yeah,
movie or
yeah, yeah,
TV show
yeah.
now.
I'd say same here. Like I'll just chalk it up to like movie magic. Be like, okay, whatever, just go with it. But sometimes I'll be like, that's that's not how it happens.
Sure. Well, let's. I'd love to ask you about this, kind of going back to where we kind of our mutual kind of shared origin story starts in Baltimore. And there's a few movies that have been shot in Baltimore by now. Is there anything that sticks out to you as obviously The Wire? I feel like The Wire and Homicide got it pretty right, pretty represented the area they shot in. But is there anything shot in Baltimore where you're just like, nah, didn't quite get that?
Let me think. Because I don't necessarily go searching for movies or TV shows based in Maryland or Baltimore, but I'm
Uh huh.
always excited and surprised when I see it. I think I was watching Central Intelligence with The Rock and Kevin Hart, which I think takes place like right outside of Maryland,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm just so happy to see the Maryland flag back there. The fourth Die Hard movie, Live Free or Die Hard,
Uh huh.
which kind of bounces back and forth from DC and Maryland. And I know there's like one scene where I actually enjoy this movie. I know it kind of gets a lot of
Mm-hmm.
flack, but I actually enjoyed that as a Die Hard movie. I think this it's the scene where there's like the chase on the freeway. I think it's supposed to be 695, and
Mm-hmm.
the there's like he jumps from the plane into the sort of like the broken freeway. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been a while since I've seen it, but there was something like where whatever freeway they're on, I think it was 695. There
Yeah.
was like the structure of the freeway did not match. Where it was like, oh, this isn't. You could tell they did not really film that on the actual 695.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be especially depending on the day on 695. It'd be a much less, much longer scene because it's like everyone trying to get out of Baltimore, trying to get back to DC. It's just like, and here's your chase.
You're
Ding,
right.
ding, ding, ding.
And then I
uh
know John Travolta got a lot of flack for his Baltimore accent in Hairspray, which I never saw the whole movie, but the little
huh.
clips I saw, I was like, he's nailing some of it. Like, some of it may have been wonky. I again didn't see the whole movie, but like just from the trailer, I was like, this sounds like someone from Maryland.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie version of Baltimore of Hairspray. I liked that movie a lot. Well, the other thing is like that character is supposed to be kind of like a huge character, so I thought he nailed that role. Like I can't remember if he says because the big test would be and someone who's listening to this, if John Travolta says "hun" in Hairspray anywhere, that's the ultimate Baltimore accent test.
Yeah,
Is how someone says "hun," or if they even call it Baltimore because it's like Balmer for.
Balmer. The one that I use is from Scott Van Pelt, ESPN. He always does like A's, Joe's, Natty Bo's, Han. And that's kind of like my meter for accent. My wife hates it. She hates when I talk like that, which I don't do normally, but I'll do it on purpose to antagonize her.
Mm-hmm. that's that's hilarious. Yeah, I call it Merland if I really want to like if I'm doing a bit with my wife too. So, um, well, I'm excited to talk about this because I don't know if I've ever like really told you this. So like when I was like a freshman at Towson, like I was just this like naive kid from like rural Calvert County, and I was like in like to me Towson was a big city, which shows how sheltered Calvert County is. I remember like navigating like the halls of that Towson theater department, and like like me and the rest of my class, at least for me, we were all just trying to be like your class. I think like I was looking up to you, I was looking up to Lonnie, to Grail. Like you guys were like, oh, this is maybe I can grow into this in a few years. And then I specifically remember going and buying the uncut version of Saw on DVD, and there was a trailer for a movie that you were in, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, Vince is famous, and he's still going to our school, and he's still going to this school." And then I was like, "Oh man, someday I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to trailer on the Saw DVD level."
I had no idea that there was a trailer. I'm assuming it was at that time it had to have been Ghostwatcher 2 or Murder Game, but yeah, I had no idea that that was there. That's that's insane. But I think that to your point, that's just something that kind of happens with all the freshmen. At least that was my experience. Where
Mm-hmm.
when like our class came in as freshmen, we were looking up to like the Jamie Flanagans, the Jurgens, and everyone who was kind of above us, and like, oh man, look how great they are, and look how like polished and confident, and like let's work our way towards that. So I mean, that's very flattering. Thank you so much. I had no idea.
Oh yeah, like I thought like the fact that you were in a movie I thought was just like the coolest thing. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep doing my movement exercises and my and my voice work. And then after I get out here, I'll learn. I'll figure out the business side of this. um, which is I appreciate that like the curriculum at Towson I think really did a lot as far as like I learned a lot about being an artist and like I was exposed to avant-garde weird stuff for the first time. And then I've had to figure out the business side of it. I figured out the business side of it afterwards. But I feel like I got a good grounding in how to like be myself on stage, and then also just getting into stand up in my senior year helped a lot too. But let me ask you this: I want to kind of trace your origin here a bit, Vince. Where did you grow up? Are you originally from Maryland?
Yeah, I'm from Maryland, Harford County, so not too far from Towson. Uh, Grew up in Falston,
Uh huh.
so was born at GBMC, like right down the street from Towson, and then just
Right.
lived in Falston. Went to Falston High School. Went to Towson, so I was, yeah, basically like all the formative years of my life were very Maryland oriented.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of saw like Towson like grow and come up through like your time growing up.
Right, like I remember when it was like Towson State, and like when my aunt went there, it was like Towson's teacher college. So I remember right before like we went to Towson, it was still going by Towson State. And if you like
Mm-hmm.
watch the few times that Towson makes it on ESPN for like a game, a lot of announcers will still call it Towson State or Townsend. They don't even bother to know our name.
I know the Townsend thing bugged me so much. Is like at least like it's clearly not send in the name if you
Yeah,
just look at it.
it's not Robert Townsend. It's not Meteor Man. Like you should know the difference.
Yeah, I know exactly. Towson's getting on ESPN now. Or
From time to time, normally uh, just for blowouts, just to sort of like if we're like I think 10 years ago we played like LSU in some game
mm-hmm.
and hung for like the first 5 minutes and then got destroyed. I know
Uh
we
huh.
were on the highlights, but like low lights because we had like the biggest losing streak I think in NCAA history for a second. But
Oh
then
no.
like there's been some years like where our football team it does really well, and then
Yeah.
the basketball team has sort of had like spurts of being really good. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't get a lot of coverage, but every now and then they'll just like throw us a bone and be like, it's usually like ESPN2 or ESPN,
Uh huh.
like
Like ESPN Plus.
ESPNU. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember my freshman year, my roommate was on the football team, and I think that was like a particularly good time for that. But you're saying this is mostly basketball. This is when this comes up.
Basketball, football, and lacrosse.
Uh
I
huh.
think we just because the East Coast, like I feel like all the
Sure.
lacrosse programs are right there. So I don't think I've ever seen Towson baseball on there. I'm assuming we have other teams, but
Yeah.
uh,
Probably got wrestling or swimming
yeah,
or
yeah,
some
yeah. But yeah,
or
those are
something.
like the big ones that you'll see like a handful of times in a decade.
Oh, interesting. And this is and so when you were growing up, were you like because you're like a sports fan. I remember thinking for the longest time that sports people and theater people and like never the two shall combine. But were you like when you were you like were you like a theater kid growing up? Were you interested in like acting as from a young age, or did that come like later on in high school?
I was interested in it like when I was younger. My dream actually at the time was to like I think when I was like in elementary school was to be in the NBA, and
Uh-huh.
then in the off season like do acting. Like so when I saw Shaq do it, I was like, okay, like this can be done.
Yeah.
To varying degrees of success, but he was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, when I was a kid, I always loved acting, and I would like we did something called I don't know if you did this at your school. It was called you ever heard of Odyssey of the Mind? Like OM. It was like a
Oh, I don't know.
creative uh, competition for elementary, middle school, high school. I think even in college at some point. But that was kind of I always liked acting, like doing like little films with friends and stuff, but that was when I was able to actually sort of get on stage because you have to do like a little skit or like play where you had to like problem solve something. You had to incorporate different themes into your play, and
Uh-huh.
that was like the first time that I was able, because I always wanted to get in front of people and act, but there weren't any opportunities in elementary school, and if there were, I never got cast in anything. So this was like sort of like my chance to be like, okay, like I can do that, and that kind of like scratched the itch, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I enjoy doing this.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I'm trying to think if I had anything like that. I always remember like occasionally you would do like a little like sketch or presentation when I was in elementary school, like in front of the class. Middle school, I don't know if I had a ton of opportunities like that. Maybe like one or two, like you would do like a presentation or memorize something from like a play or memorize a poem or something. But then it wasn't until I got to I remember like in high school, that's where that's where like, because I didn't get bit by the bug until did a play. Like I had a friend nag me to audition, and then I got cast as like the tall, quiet role, um, and that's when I got the bug. But like, it sounds like you were like you knew you had like the thing, and then you needed the outlet.
Right, and let me ask you this. Not trying to like switch it around on you in terms
Oh,
of
of
interviewing.
course,
Uh,
I love this.
all right, good. When did you know that like you wanted to study like theater acting in college? Like, because I feel like there's a break between like, oh, this is fun doing it as like a little hobby, versus I'm actually going to commit to this.
Honestly, I can maybe after maybe like I seriously had the thought of like I'm going to apply as a theater major. Maybe the next year, maybe junior year. Cuz I remember like sophomore year just kind of like that first time like getting on stage. I remember like being like nervous at first to do it, and then I also started playing guitar at the same time as well, so those two things kind of were like always intertwined for me. But then I think it was over that first year um of going through the rehearsal process and discovering like that I was passionate about it. Like I looked forward to staying after school to work on it or like learning, because at my high school they had us do everything. Like I learned how to cut wood on a table saw and build stuff too, and hang lights. So it was kind of like a well-rounded education at my high school. I remember just kind of realizing, hey, I'm excited to like come to school on a Saturday and build sets for 5 hours. I'm excited about this. I'm gonna do this. So it's probably, but like realizing I could go to school for it was probably maybe the next year that I started planning for it. What it was, I'm curious. When was it for you? When did that moment happen for you?
It was probably around the same time, like my junior year. I think that yeah, as you're in high school, you know, you're trying to figure out like, all right, got a couple years, you got to figure out like where you want to go to school, what do you want to do, and I think I was kind of leaning towards like a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just because like I was like, all right, that's something that I feel like I could conceivably do, and I didn't even think about, even though I was like in a couple plays and stuff, I wasn't thinking about doing that seriously, because the way I looked at it, remember, like I said, I wanted to be like in the NBA when I was a kid. Like
Mm-hmm.
that dream kind of slowly became a non-reality once I started seeing competition outside of like my school and like my county and my bubble. So I was like, oh, I'm one of the better ball players in my school. But then we play against other teams, and there's a bunch of other guys who are like better than me. And then we go. I remember we used to play in Baltimore City in the summer league, and
Mm-hmm.
we just got manhandled every time. Like the kids were so happy to see us pull up because they were like, "Oh, we're dropping 90 on them," and they literally like if we got to double digits. I remember one score specifically, we were outscored 93-11, and
Shit.
like we just got mollywopped every time. So I was like, okay, like I like and the kids in the city are way better than me, and then like there's probably kids in like Chicago or New York or LA who are better than like these Baltimore kids. So like I can either work, and I'd been working so hard. I'd improved so much but I feel like I kind of hit like my cap, and it's like I can't really get much better than this. So this
Oh,
is
for sure, yeah.
where, and so I thought the same thing with acting, and to an extent it is. Like I don't want to make it sound like it's not, but we did a sort of county theater festival where all the high schools
Uh-huh.
in Harford County got together and put on some performances, and then in between we do like whose lines it anyway type improv sketches,
Mm-hmm.
and our teachers would send us up to do it. And I remember I went up near the end, and I was very fortunate that I got paired with an actress who was also very talented, uh,
Yeah.
and like and killed it and kind of carried me a bit. But like we ended up just improving this like one of those things where you're it's like, oh, here's a scenario where a soda is stuck in the machine, and now do
Mm-hmm.
it as pro wrestling, now do it as an action movie, now do it as a musical, and they would keep flipping it. And it just so
Uh-huh.
happened that everything they gave to us we were able to flip very well. And
Yeah.
so we actually got a standing ovation at the end. And I remember thinking like, oh, if I can do this well in front of like all the kids in the county, and I thought like there's going to be so many other kids who are just miles better than me. If I can hang with them, I might be able to like sort of fine tune this and get better and maybe make something of it.
Yeah. No, no, I know exactly what you mean. Did you ever like attend like the Maryland Theater Festival your school?
I don't think so. I think the most that we did was the county, Harford County. We went to the Harford Community College, and then like the I forget how many schools were in our county, like six or
Mm-hmm.
something. Like we just all
Gotcha.
sort of filled the auditorium. It was all theater kids, so or at least kids who were taking drama courses in high school. Some were just taking it as an elective, and like it's the easy class, but it was a lot of fun.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's awesome. And so then you're like, so this is the moment where you're just like, okay, I'm gonna put my energy and focus into this. And then you get to Towson, and I'm curious what your experience was like. I'm guessing you went right from high school to Towson. What were those first couple of years like? Because I my memory is that the fall semester they just try to break everybody that they can to weed out the people who are not here because they need to be. So I'm curious if it was like that for you.
Yeah, it was. Now, I forget when you got into Towson, had they started auditioning people to get into the program yet, or was it like you said, where everyone just signed up and then they used that weeding out process to narrow everyone out?
I don't recall having to audition for the program. They like what I remember is they give you all the hardest stuff, like the hardest things. There was that like Runaways monologue that we did where I basically didn't sleep or eat for a day to like, and it's like a method exercise. So we did that, and then sophomore year fall is when they have you audition for the acting track if you declare acting track. And I actually didn't get into the acting track. I ended up switching to general studies
Oh, really?
and then doing a film minor. I still got cast in stuff. So
Yeah, I
I
remember
don't
you
know.
being and stuff. So,
Yeah, so I think most people just would probably assume if I didn't tell them I was still acting track anyway, because
yeah.
I was still showing up to audition. So I'm not sure exactly what the difference was, but yeah, I saw you like put your hands on your head when I mentioned those Runaways monologues. Did you do those?
Oh, absolutely. And this is so. But back to what you were saying about the weeding out process, because we didn't even have an audition to get into the acting track. It was I think they implemented that like right after us,
Mm-hmm.
and so we show up in like in a huge class, and they're trying to weed everyone out. And I've been talking about it like with some of my peers out here, like Kim, Katrin, Lonnie, and even Ian Carroll Hogan, and we were just kind of going over like, man, we they did stuff to not that this is gonna be an expose. I don't want to like snitch on anyone, but like the stuff they did was like borderline abusive, and
No.
and maybe not. And I'm sure like I'm being nice about it because like my friends are like it wasn't borderline. It was abusive, and I remember the Runaways monologue. Jeez, like what was your which runaway? I didn't do spoons. I did the superheroes. I felt like all my friends got spoons, but I got the superheroes one. Do you remember which one you had?
I don't. The big thing I remember is the like you do this like immersive like soup kitchen thing almost. And I remember getting handed like some like cold chicken broth and mushy slice of white bread, and I was so hungry, and I just remember shoving it in my mouth, and that like cold saltiness almost made me throw up. That's what I remember. If I had anything to throw up, I probably would have. But I remember just kind of like in a corner with my girlfriend at that time, Kristen. I don't know if you remember her.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. I actually remember meeting you guys together at the same time.
yeah, yeah. So we were just kind of like, and again, like both from small towns, so we were just kind of like relying on each other to get through this thing. So I just remember like shoving that gross bread into my mouth, but still trying to be in character. Uh, but yeah, if I had to think about it now, like in 2022, I don't think you could. I don't think you could do Runaways monologues in an educational setting nowadays.
Oh, and I also remember. So you talked about like the immersive. So you guys did we didn't do the soup kitchen. We did a kindergarten class. We did a mental asylum, and we did maybe it was a soup kitchen, or I think we were. Yeah, I think we were. It was somewhere where we were homeless, somewhere we were in mental
Mm-hmm.
asylum, and somewhere we were in kindergarten. And the only one that I was good at was the kindergarten one because that was something that I could at least like I had some experience with that. So it's like I could
Right, you
tap
could
into like,
connect
oh,
to that.
here's what I was like in kindergarten, and I was able to tap into that. But like all the other stuff was like it was just so, and I get why they did it. It was like they're trying to like make you well rounded and like
Mm-hmm.
stretch yourself. But I remember at the time I was like, how am I can't like I had no idea. Like it's silly to think about now, but like my idea of like a homeless person was dressing up like Waiting for Godot. So I came in like in a trench coat and a fedora. And I was kind of like fingerless gloves, and it was like no, like real homeless people like there's a real like they're real people. They're not like just characters. So I remember that was
Right.
like tough for me to sort of get around at that young age. I was like still basically a teenager.
Yeah, and that's something I've thought about a lot in retrospect now is like we could learn all the techniques and all of the tools and the craft of acting, but there is always that sort of unintangible element of like until you've like lived a little, there's and you have something to draw from. There's a cap, right? Like we were talking about like a cap on like athletic performance, but like so like I feel like until like you get beat up by life a little bit in your 20s and your 30s, like now I feel like if I was going to like dive into like a really meaty dramatic play or do like a really weighty independent film, I feel like I could bring so much more to it than I could have when I was like younger and auditioning for stuff.
Oh, 100%. And it's something you don't even really think about because I remember I don't feel like I'm that far removed from college, but I
Mhm.
remember like when we were doing notes or talking to the director about things and then being like, "Oh, like what's your take on this scene?" And you instinctually go with what you think. And I remember when I was younger, it was always interesting. Probably not though. But now, like just because the life that you live, not that anything's like that crazy, but just like you said, just like life experience. A lot of those instinctually come out, and you just sort of see the scene a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely, cuz you have like something to like pull from. Uh cuz again all we could relate to was like being in kindergarten at one point.
Yeah,
Um
and I was pretty sheltered growing up, so it was like my little bubble was like I just really did not have a lot of quote unquote life experience.
Oh yeah, neither did I. Calvert County is basically like a vacation town for like rich people from DC. So I was just like grown up. I was just grown up in the woods with like dudes who liked to hunt and drive trucks and ladies who liked to really deck out their house at the holidays. So I was like, I got nothing on what it's like. I got nothing on what it's like to be homeless. I got
Yeah.
nothing on what it's like to like pleasure truck drivers for your next score. You know, I was just like I'm trying here, I'm trying I'm trying here, but like how about you just as the director of this play, how about you tell me what you want and I'll try to do that.
Or at least like maybe articulate that we get that you're not going to nail all the nuances of this character as an 18 or 19-year-old. You just like, I mean, and there are some who can. Like, there's some. I remember there were people in my class who maybe because they had lived a little more
Sure.
in their short time at that point, they were able to sort of connect a little more with like certain pain and hurt elements. But like,
Yeah.
I wish for the other ones they could be like, okay, like you're not getting it, but that's okay. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
nailing the technical beats, but the other stuff is just like you said, tangible things that you'll get later. Because at the time,
Yeah.
like some of them would just be like, oh, you're not getting it, and it's like, well, I must suck then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there needs yeah, if you get to a little bit like it's fine. That's gonna fill in later, or but um is there anything like you is there anything from your training at Towson that you still think about, like when it comes to like acting now or like auditions and stuff?
So I guess the one thing, and I'm so grateful for this, Peter Ray, one of our professors. I guess
Oh,
I mean you know who he is,
yeah.
but I figured
Yeah,
other
one
people
of the
listening,
best. He's a great teacher. I really
top
liked
tier.
him.
He offered a senior seminar class that for us, and I'm assuming he did it for everyone else, but I know for us it was like kind of the first time they did it, and it wasn't mandatory. It was just like, oh, sign up if you want, and it basically was it taught you sort of like the business things that went along with it, and he was kind of the.
Yeah.
I remember him being like the first professor there, in my memory, to be like, there's no shame in like booking commercials. You know, there's no shit like that's how you pay the bill. Like artistically, yeah, like you want to do like some off Broadway stuff to like really feed your soul, but in terms of like, it's like man, it's like I got a commercial when I was like fresh out of college, and that like paid my rent for a very long time. Uh, it like how to like write stuff off. But the thing that I should have paid more attention to that because I'm pretty terrible at business. But the thing that still carries with me is he taught us how to audition, like for real,
Uh-huh.
where you had to like basically do cold reads, like where we'd show up to class, he'd give us some sides, be like, go outside, you got 15 minutes, and then come in, try to have it memorized. If not, try and be off book as much as possible, make some choices, wow me. And and Peter was so good at doing the and I don't know if anyone can see, but he'll like put his hands down where he's like in character, and he'd be like a jerk casting director, and then he would
Uh-huh.
like step out of it and be like, "This is great, like you're killing it, you're doing such a good job," and then he'd be putting back in and be like he'd eat chips while we were like auditioning, and then of course throw us off our game, and then he'd apologize afterwards and be like, "I'm sorry, like you did great. I'm just letting you know how I'm giving you the worst case scenario of stuff that I've seen." And I think some of the reasons I've been able to book gigs in the future against people who might be better than me is auditioning. Like, cause, and that's another thing I like from Towson is when we did directing scenes, we would, when we were taking the directing class and we were the directors, we would be on the other side of the table. So I
Yeah.
would see all my friends come in who I knew could do the material, I knew could crush it. And I see another side of them. I see them like a little nervous. I see them fidgety. And it's like, if this is my first time seeing them, I might not go with them. But if
Mhm.
you go in there a little more confident, which is tough to do, and make a choice that's like a little different, it doesn't have to be like a huge bombastic choice, but you're so used to seeing everyone do the same inflection, the same choice, the same everything. And so when someone kind of takes a chance and does something a little differently, like you sort of like take notice, and it could backfire. You'd be like, ah, that's not what we're looking for, or you'd be like, that person now sticks out in my mind. So I go into auditions now trying to play a little. And I really do believe that's been very helpful because at least for callbacks, I'll have people be like, "We loved what you did. We'd love to see you try this again."
That's amazing advice. That and yeah, because auditioning is like a craft onto itself, like almost like separate of like actually acting on camera or acting on a stage. It's so removed. So you're saying like, and I'm sure I took this as well, but I just want to reiterate it for my own self. So like, you're basically when you audition, you have like maybe 15 minutes with the material you're given, and then you just make a strong choice and then maybe a different choice from what you're expecting. Because I imagine also in Los Angeles, you're in a room with maybe like 20 other people who kind of look like you also.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. and you don't always get like the side, like a lot of most of my auditions you get the materials ahead of time, but like every now and then they'll throw a curveball with like, oh, here's been a rewrite, or like here, I remember there have been a couple where I've not gotten any information until like I sat down, but a lot of times they'll provide it for you already, like, oh, check it out, and then I always try and be off book, just because I think it's just easier. It sits in their mind better if you're not like holding something in your hand and then looking at it. If you kind of already have an idea, you're just a little more connected to everything.
Absolutely. Um, do you ever what do you wear when you go to auditions? Do you wear just like you're not are you having to try to dress like the character a little bit, or are you just kind of going in like with uh more normal dress?
So it's interesting because I feel like, and I could be remembering this all wrong. I feel like at Towson and just like the East Coast in general, like when you're auditioning for stuff, like out and about, it was like button up shirt, nice slacks, shoes. Like you weren't supposed to be the character. You were just presentable, like nice, but
Right.
something like it's something like maybe similar to like what your headshot looked like. I feel like out here before the pandemic, well, I guess during the pandemic too, because like now a lot of my auditions are online and like self submissions. Uh, well, I won't try to dress just like the character, but like get the vibe of them. So if you're playing
Hmm.
like I've had like a lot of like just like the best friend auditions where you just sort of like, okay, like just wear just nondescript t-shirt, maybe like a flannel over it,
Yeah.
if like, and then little tricks, like if I'm supposed to be like a little nerdier, like I'll wear some glasses.
Right. Yeah.
If you're supposed to be like a corporate guy, wear a tie, like stuff like that, like not like full on costume or makeup, but something that can put them into the world and be like, okay, we can visualize them as the character.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Absolutely. I appreciate your insight into this, Vince. um, aw- awesome. Um, yeah. Self submissions. I feel that some way. Like when I'm recording my monologues for this show, it's just like there's a certain level of like, what am I doing?
Right, right. I've been really fortunate. One of my really good friends, Matt Wright, who's also a really good actor. He's from Maryland too. He went to Stevenson,
Mm-hmm.
but he's out here now, and he's someone that we sort of lean on each other for self submissions. Like
Uh huh.
well, he's got the best equipment anyway, so like I'll definitely go to him. But like I find that if you can find someone who can like sort of give you good feedback and I can't describe it, but it's like I feel that I always put like my best auditions on tape when I'm with like particular people.
Uh-huh. Like someone that you can like get reliable feedback from, and so there's sort of like a rapport. No, that makes total sense. I would totally, if I was a casting director, I'd cast you in every best friend role that you came in for, because you're just that's that's how I see you, Vince.
Well,
And
thank
I'm
you, thank you.
and I mean it as a compliment, like especially like with with your Orioles head and your Charm City hoodie, I could totally see us like walking through a farmer's market where I'm just like, I don't know if she likes me or not.
We need to make that movie now.
Dude, I'm down. Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
I'll travel to New York.
Perfect. I dig it. I like it. Um, yeah. So. Okay. And I'm curious a little bit about what it's been like this. What refresh my memory? What shows did you do when you were at Towson that I might have seen?
Let's see. So I didn't really. Try to think. How many years ahead am I than you?
Let's see.
When was your freshman year of Towson?
2000 fall 2004.
2004. All right. So you weren't there for hair, I don't think.
No, I have heard about hair, but
I heard everyone. I heard everyone heard. I worked with some kids. They're adults now, but they're like in their 20s recently, and they went to Towson, and they were like, "You were in hair." Like we've heard legendary stories about that. I was in. We did. Weren't you in? There were so many people in this, and I apologize. My memory's not what it used to be. We did Changeling together, right?
yes, we did.
Yes. So you saw that, or at least
Hmm.
saw bits of it when you were on stage and then backstage.
Uh huh.
Did you see The Other Shore?
Yes, I saw it. I don't think I was in it because that was somewhere else. That wasn't at Towson.
That was at Villa Julie / Stevenson. That's like
Yeah,
when
I
we were
remember seeing
doing.
that and really liking it.
Uh, Trying to think. Oh, after the other shore, I think we did Anna's improv show. Anna Lucero uh,
Yes.
did it. It was like Kirsten Sveningson, Tori Katz, Mike Carruthers, Ed Ronspees, Haley Wineland, myself.
Uh huh.
I think that. I apologize if I'm missing anyone. I think that was us, and Anna directed. That was so much fun. That was a blast. And I remember thinking at the time that I was being punished because like other shore was it was left me thinking I didn't do a great job. I'm saying that to like fish for compliments or anything. It was just like
Hmm.
the fact of the matter was due to creative vision between me and the director Naoko. Like I think we were both looking at different things, and
Sure.
I
Sure.
was more based in like realistic acting, and that's not what this play was.
Right.
So we just kind of didn't butt heads. It was just like she'd be like, "You're not getting it," and I was like, "I'm what am I doing?" So I remember after that, and there was like a lot of drama that sort of came with that. And
Hmm.
I thought, oh, I was the lead in this show that got like a lot of acclaim. Like I'll probably be up for a lot of leads in other main stage shows. So when I got cast like in a student run show, which I wanted to do on a show because
Yeah.
I seemed like the most fun one. I was like, oh, like maybe they don't want me anymore. And then maybe Anna was doing this to save face because she's a good friend. But she's like, no, I fought for you. Like I wanted you to be in this, and I'm so glad. If that's the case, I'm so glad she did because that was such a blast. That's why
Hmm.
I'm assuming that's like why you got into it. I'm sure that's why a lot of people get into theater. It's like it's fun. It's just like going out on stage and having fun. And I get why we're supposed to do these deep, meaningful things. We're supposed to like tell a story. We're supposed like it's a responsibility as artists. But there are times where I just want to play. Like it's called a play. Like I just want to like have fun and make people laugh.
100%. That is exactly right. I am vibing so hard with that. Yeah, like that's something I remember. Like I'm around so many comedians that take this so serious. I'm like, this has to be fun first, or we should all just go get regular jobs at CVS.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember that. I remember that show so well because I remember like dying laughing the entire time in the audience because I remember the Oregon Trail sketch with the where Mike would just roll in and yell "broken wheel." I still think about that like every other week sometimes. Or I remember you and Mike were like little kids playing Lord of the Rings and hitting pause and unpause, and you were this like beautifully like playful like childlike character, and then Ed's playing your dad. I fucking loved that, man.
God, there was that's another thing that kind of helped me like click on some moments because I felt like at Towson I would be casting scenes for either like for a class or for something, and sometimes they'd be dramatic scenes,
Yeah,
and everyone would laugh at them, and because I was kind of like not a like class clown guy, but I was like more the comedy guy, and I felt like
sure.
and I was fortunate that like it kind of came naturally, but I felt like when I was trying to be serious, I was still getting a lot of laughs, and I took it personally at first because I was like, I'm not trying to be funny, I'm trying to like tap into something here, and all you can see is goofy Vince
Uh
and
huh.
not take it seriously. And that scene with Mike Carruthers where we were the Lord of the Rings kids playing around, I forget who it was, and I apologize to this professor, but it's something that I carried with me. So like it was so beautifully realized, and I realized at that point that you can do something funny and there could be like a sort of like tenderness to it, and you can do something serious and there can be elements of lightness and humor to it. Because I look at like Denzel Washington, who really hasn't done a comedy since like the 80s, and
Mm-hmm.
he's such an incredible actor, and he does mostly known for dramatic work, but I laugh at a lot of stuff he does. Like he'll just have little like quips or remarks, or even when he's being a badass in like The Equalizer, and he'll like say something to someone. He's terrifying, but you'll kind of be like, "Ha!" Like that was a good line. And so like
Yeah.
there's because in real life there's always elements of humor or lightness even in like serious things. And so I was able to realize, okay, don't take it personally. There can be a blend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of Breaking Bad a lot with that because there can be some like very funny quips like or or lines. Meanwhile, they're like dissolving a man in acid,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or like or like he's like, or like he just hit somebody with his car. Or another one that sticks out for me is there's, I think it's season 2, so it's like kind of early on, where Walt is in a hardware store and he sees like a knockoff version of Jesse, some like meth head like guy with the hat, and starts lecturing on him on like, you don't buy everything at the same place. You 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 space it out, and you don't, and you're getting the wrong matches. You got to get those. And he's like lecturing this guy on like, you're not getting the right stuff to make meth. And then this makes the guy run out, and then there's like some like tough gangbanger dude, and so by the time he's in the parking lot, he's like, he's Heisenberg, and he's like, stay out of my territory. And so like, because again, that sort of like combination of like earthy, like artistic, like I will bleed on the stage, combined with like the levity. There's a reason there are two masks on that drama thing. There's both are represented, and often at the same time.
And Bryan Cranston, along with like Steve Carell, like are like just some of the many actors who I'm now looking at. Like they were kind of known as comedic actors, but they can do like drama as well, and just like walk that line so well. And it's all about, and now I sound like pretentious, but it's like, all about being like in the truth of the moment.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't think you sound pretentious like at all. This is like, that's the core of like getting to it. And
maybe
then,
not
like,
pretentious, like cliche, maybe. But
sure. And then there's like, and then the craft, and then the craft side of this, because if you're approaching this as a job, which we were taught to do, is like you get the tools in place so that you can get to that place frequently. Like if you're doing 8 shows a week, on doing a play, or if you're like, or if you're doing a movie or a TV show, and you've got like a bunch of crew running around and stuff, it's not like the idea like, oh, I'm an artist, I need like candles and stuff. No, just you know, you gotta, sometimes you're showing up and punching in and doing the thing.
Right, right. I always felt like this might come out right, but I always felt when Christian Bale blew up on set to the crew, like he apologized, and I know he knows he was in the wrong, but a slight part of me was like, I don't know the scenario of what happened, but it's like, if it is what they said it was, like you kind of understand, like if someone's like talking or moving stuff around or not helping, it's like it can be distracting. And of course, someone, if you're Christian Bale, who's like so into it, like I don't think it's something I'd ever do, just because I don't think that's like my personality to like snap on someone. But
Yeah,
I can, a slight bit of me understands his frustration. So I was like, I don't, that old Chris Rock bit. It was like, I don't agree with him,
but I
understood. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I know. Yeah, like you understand the frustration. You don't, which is not condoning the reaction, but you can see like where it's come from. Absolutely. And then after you graduated, how soon did you move out to Los Angeles? Was Los Angeles always the plan?
It was, but it's also, again, I've been in Maryland my entire life, so it was scary. Like just to think of not making a big move, being away from family, being away from everything, growing up in a small town. And then even Towson is like you said, to someone like us, it seems like a big city. But then Baltimore is even bigger than that. Baltimore is minuscule compared to like these other heavy hitters. So
Yeah.
I think my dream was to go to LA, but I wasn't sure if I was going to pull the trigger on it. And then I did National Players with Only Theater. They always came and had auditions at Towson, and Lonnie actually got on, and they needed a replacement halfway through. So Lonnie recommended me, and I joined them for the second leg of the tour. And that was helpful, just to be outside of Maryland, just to see other parts of the country, meet different types of people, see different things. But yeah, I didn't move to. It took me a while because I was also shooting some stuff here. I felt like I was getting work in Maryland, and I had friends here, and it was fun. It was comfortable. So I didn't move to Los Angeles until 2010, and I graduated. Technically, I should have graduated in '05. I stayed on for a super senior semester when we did Changeling.
Yep.
Then I did National Players. Hadn't finished my thesis yet, so I hadn't technically graduated. So then when I came back, I was like, I need to. I signed up again for that class
Mm-hmm.
and ended up officially getting my diploma in 2007. But then again, it was a few years before I made it out to LA.
Sure. Yeah, I hung around Baltimore for I think another 2 years before I moved to New York also because I was saving money. I was working. I was getting my legs in doing stand up because like once I did that first open mic, I was like, oh, this will be it. Because I sort of like based on like the casting decisions people made about me in college, I thought, okay, I'm not getting cast in leads. I'm getting cast where I work. So I might be more of a utility player when it comes to show business, which is great. Those people work all the time. I don't
It's
think
the
there's any
best, yeah.
yeah, there's absolutely that's no shame in that game. And yeah, and then you can go to the grocery store and like a normal person.
Exactly. Live a normal life and still collect your checks.
Exactly. So I was completely cool with that. And then once I found stand up, I was like, ooh, I've got something that the people that are getting cast in leads, I know they can't do this. So that's where I got a little bit of like I think a healthy amount of ego my last year, but that helped out
I
too.
still tell this story from time to time because I was telling some friends that I was going to be doing your podcast, and they're like, "Oh, Will, like, how's he doing and stuff like that?" I was, I
Oh,
think,
nice.
talking to Sophia, and it's like, "Oh yeah, he's doing stand up," and she's doing stand up too. So she's like, "Oh, really?" She's like, "I like that's great," and I was like, "Yeah, he's like really good." And I told the story. The story I always tell is I think you were taking a stand up class that Tommy did at
Yep.
Towson, and there was like a showcase for it. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone goes up, and everyone varying degrees of funny and haha, but all supportive and pretty good. I remember you came on, and I'm being honest, like you blew me away. Like you reminded me of like Stephen Wright meets uh, Mitch Hedberg, and it was just that like dry delivery. But like what you were saying, I thought I hadn't heard these jokes before, so
Mm-hmm.
like I'm pretty sure they were your Will Carey original. I remember I think the one that cracked me up the most was the you're trying to buy drugs
I
and
remember that one.
yeah, and then you found like so you followed the car that had dealer plates and were disappointed that like he didn't have drugs and your delivery for it because it was so you're just like sitting you're just so calm sitting there nonchalant and then just just simply stating everything and landing everything and I remember I'm pretty sure I went up to you afterwards. I was like, dude, that was great. Like I think you could do this.
I remember that so well, and thank you for saying that. That was like I had like that was a real confidence boost taking that class and finding and then finding stand up. And I remember that showcase because I think I have video of it somewhere, probably on like some old DVD, like in my storage unit somewhere. But yeah, I remember like really getting a great response, and then like like the room explode was like
Oh yeah, you killed it.
I was like, all right, I'm ready to go into the real world now. I'll ride this. I'll ride this through all the hard times.
Yeah, but that's the moment that you need, like where it's like, okay, like here's something that I have fun doing, but once you do it and you get that response, that's like, all right, like at least I'm on the right track and can do this.
Exactly. You see like the kind of the path in the grass, the path forward, and you get and that's super helpful for sure. And how have and so you get to LA and and what's kind of like the plan? I know you and Lonnie did a web series for a little while. And then and how when you first get to LA, like what was that like for you?
So for me, it was. I think not to say I don't recommend it or regret anything because I think everything gets you to the point you're supposed to be at in life.
Yep.
Um, I know for me, I look back on it and it's like I wish I'd kind of hit the ground running a little harder when I first got there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to find my legs in terms of just finding a place to live, in terms of just like,
Yeah.
making money and like feeding myself. So I wasn't really doing anything. I would do stuff like with friends. I'd come back to Maryland to shoot some stuff. So I was able to keep my like resume. I would put stuff on like every now and then. A lot of it, well, like you said, like with Lonnie and Ryan Turner, like we would sort of like shoot our own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is I'm sure very big. A lot of people are like, oh, the best way to get yourself out there if they're not casting you is to put it on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I remember in like 2013, my now wife, she and I were dating and we broke up,
Mm-hmm.
and I took it pretty hard. And I know
Yeah.
one of the reasons, like multiple reasons we broke up, but one of the things that she wanted from me was like you need to like start applying yourself. You need to like have like a little more ambition with what you came out here to do. Because I would get so caught up in like working at the restaurant and picking up shifts for people and making sure that bills were paid.
Yeah.
Uh, so it can be scary, sort of taking that risk and like that gamble on yourself. But I remember, not just for her, because obviously like you can't do it for others, you have to do it for yourself.
Yep.
But I started sort of hitting the ground. I like spent a lot of my savings on these super expensive headshots, which normally I would not recommend. Everyone says you don't have to do that. Like you can like don't break the bank on these headshots. But I will say with their names are Theo and Juliet out of LA, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they take people like me anymore. I think they may have gotten too big. But for the at the time, I learned that casting directors can actually tell the quality of headshots, and they will look at your headshots and be like, "Oh, this is a serious. They're serious about this."
Yeah.
And so those headshots, along with like me acting in things, uh, I was able to pay off those headshots very quickly. Uh, it was also helpful that around that time we went to college with Amy Schumer,
Yes, we.
and 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 I was fortunate enough to she put me in some of her sketches on Inside Amy Schumer, and
Uh
so
huh.
my reel would then look pretty decent because I would be sharing this screen time with Amy and Parker Posey and Bill Hader and Tig Notaro, and so people see that and they're like, oh, okay, like look at this guy. It's all the same show, but like he's doing things,
Yeah.
and so like I've been able to, and since then, like there's moments like the pandemic was obviously tough for everyone,
Yeah.
uh, and then like trying to find a job. And I find I'm constantly battling between trying to, have that balance between your job where you're actually like paying the bills versus your what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so it ebbs and flows, and I'm getting back into it again, but there are always moments where you're like, I feel like I'm just not like doing enough. I'm not even like putting it out there.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you mean. There was definitely a long time when I moved to New York, and it took me forever to find like even just like a steady, really job that I was miserable at, just to kind of like keep myself afloat for a little while. I was just kind of like going from like temp gig to temp gig to extra gig to like it took a while to get some stability. And then also I'll credit my wife as well. She was the one who was like, you could be doing something that brings you like joy during the day, and that would help support all of these other things you want to do. um so it took a long time to kind of like get out of my own way on certain things.
Yeah.
um and then also like always having like one thing that I know I completely control, like a podcast that helps like scratch the creativity, that helps scratch the like need to like continue to like make and do things in between gigs or sets or booking jobs. Although I did right before the pandemic started, I did get a couple of voiceover things. That was
Oh,
really sweet.
nice.
That was fun.
I get that. Like right now, you had a very deep, like soothing voice, and it was like, yeah, like I probably heard it and just like didn't even realize it was you.
Maybe. Yeah, I gotta start, I need to get some more commercials because I know I feel confident that I could just rock in and be like, people will buy your stuff, will buy your product if I'm delivering your tagline.
Absolutely. No.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so we've got our romantic comedy movie that we're going to do. We've got
Mhm.
voiceover. What this is something I like to manifest some stuff on the show because I know we're coming in for landing here. Is there something you haven't done yet, or something you want to make that you haven't done yet in terms of like either creatively, be it like a movie or TV show?
Yeah, I think just a movie or a TV show would be great at this point. Anything. Um, I think I know when I was younger, I really wanted to do an action movie, like an action comedy. But like
Uh huh.
I'm probably not too old for it now, but I'm just like not in shape for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I hear that they're just very difficult to do and not as fun as it is to watch. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I, I the only thing I can think of would be like in a not in a real jealousy way, but like when Amy Schumer did Trainwreck,
Uh
and
huh.
she's like, I got my own movie with Judd Apatow. I'm like, that's awesome. Like I was 100% like, this is incredible. This is great. When I found out the actors who were in it, I was like, that's so cool. Like I'm so proud of you. Then I found out that she was going to be acting with LeBron James, John Cena, and Method Man. And I was still happy for her, but I told her, I was like, I'm so jealous. Like those three in particular. Like I am so jealous that you're working with those three. Like Tilda Swinton, obviously, a much better actor than everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and Brie Larson, and of course Judd Apatow. Like those are the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
But the cameos, that was like you're killing me with this. So I think the only thing I'd want to do, aside from like shooting with, the only thing I'd want to do is like make a living with people that I know, love, and trust, and be able to meet new people to bring into the circle, and yeah, get a chance to meet with people that I like, work with people I admire, even if it's people outside the spectrum of act. Obviously, there's a ton of actors I'd love to work with, but I'd also love to like work with like athletes or musicians that like I really enjoy and be like, oh, it'd be cool to just sort of like see what you can do with this.
Totally. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Uh Tom DeLonge just rejoined Blink, so like the part of me that's like, oh, I want to get it. They need an opener eventually. I know exactly what you mean. I want that for you, man. And I it doesn't seem too outside the realm of possibility for me. Because again, I know because I've known you for so long, even though like we don't talk every single day. I know, like, you've got the chops and got the goods as far as like talent goes. There is absolutely a way that can happen. One thing that really inspires me and like I think is pretty cool in terms of like filmmaking. Did you ever hear this movie called Tangerine?
I've heard of it, but could you refresh me on what it is?
It's set in Los Angeles. It follows two transgender prostitutes who kind of look for one of them's boyfriend who they think is cheating on them with a cisgendered woman. It
Okay.
was directed by a guy named Sean Baker, and it got a lot of buzz because it was shot on an iPhone 5.
Okay.
And so
It sounds it's like bits and pieces of this sound familiar.
yeah, so it's like shot on like three iPhones, and like it sounds really good. Like they put all the money into getting good sound. But I was watching on Netflix and it's like, okay, I've got an iPhone. I could I can get it. I can get a microphone and write something. Like little things like that are just like it's possible. The same way like punk rock back in the day was like, oh, okay, I don't need to shred on the guitar. I could just play three chords and write something that impacts people's hearts.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, um, let me I because I feel like I'd talk your ear off. But is there anything we?
So yeah, same here. Like I was like, oh man, like we could just do 5 hours of talking, but I don't think anyone wants to hear that.
Well, we could just also talk and not record it
We
sometime.
could, yeah, we absolutely could do
I'm
that. I'm
totally
down.
down for that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this has been a true delight, man. Is there anything we can plug of yours before we get out here?
Let me see. Um, Nothing's out yet right now,
Mm-hmm.
so I got a couple things that I'm working on, but I've always been a proponent of don't bring it up until it's like in the can and released. The only thing I
Uh
can
huh.
think of is, and God, I feel like I'm promoting a friend, but I also feel like I'm like flexing a bit.
Sure.
And I apologize for the clout chasing, but it also helps me a bit. Uh, Watch Inside Amy Schumer on, I guess, Paramount and wherever you can watch it, because I do get very small residual checks from that. So watch the new season, which
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been able to see yet because I don't have Paramount. Uh, but yeah, if you watch the old stuff and like watch my stuff, then maybe I can get paid a little.
Awesome. Sounds good. And Inside Amy Schumer, like brilliant sketch comedy. I love the first run of it. What sketches were you in? Just refresh my memory.
So first, I did seasons 1, 2, and 3. First season, it was Cancer Scare. I think is what it was called. It was where I think Tig Notaro wrote it. She was on the writing staff
Mm-hmm.
season 1, and the premise is Tig has cancer, and Amy starts using that as an excuse to get out of things. And I had one line in it, but it was such a great build up. Whoever, if Tig wrote that part, that was great. Uh, it was Jesse Klein was being told that Amy told her, like, oh yeah, I've been spending all night with Tig. I read her the Indigo Girls autobiography, and then the joke was that Jesse might be like fighting some urges, and so she went to the bookstore to look for the Indigo Girls autobiography, and I played the book clerk, and she comes and is like, oh, do you have the Indigo Girls autobiography? And I just like, and the Ryan Fowler, I think that's his name, directed it,
Mm-hmm.
and just directed me, just like, yeah, do it like, he didn't say do it like this, but like he pushed me in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
and I just said the line was, looks like that's not a thing and it never will be, and had me, and but he had me say it like real like snappily, so like where I
Uh-huh.
was like serious, like where I'm on the computer like, looks like it's not a thing and it never will be, and just like lock at her like
Uh-huh.
such a dick. uh but because of that, like they brought me back for the next season,
Yeah.
and even though it was all the writing and the directing, and I did Nut Allergy, where I was a waiter who gave Parker Posey and Amy nuts when they asked not that they had a nut allergy.
Uh-huh.
And then I was gonna leave, and he was like, "Stick around. We're shooting other sketches." And she's like, "Do you want to be in this other sketch called Hello, Milady?" Where it's a bunch of these like incel nice guys who feel that they are owed sex just for being nice to
Mm-hmm.
women. And she's like, "Yeah, we can. I can throw you in at the end. Like, we'll just change the ending where I like turn around and like run into you, and you can be one of those dudes." I was like, "Yeah, sure." She's like, "We can't pay you for it." I was like, "That's fine." Turns out they did. They were like, when I got my checks, they was like, "No, we did pay you for it." And then the
Oh,
next
that's nice.
season was a double header. It was Bill Hader was on, and they did like a talk show where me and this other dude, who was also one of the incels previously, basically are masturbating in the audience, and
Uh-huh.
Amy was doing a spin on like how like the hot actresses always try to be like so down to earth and be like, oh, like I love sports and beer, and just like a play on that. And
Yeah.
then there was the other one, they threw me in at the last second. I wasn't cast in it. They just had me be part of like the crew, the on camera crew. They were shooting a pizza commercial, and Bill Hader was a former porn star, and so every time the pizza delivery boy like came in with the pizza, Bill Hader tried to have sex with him. Uh, so I was basically like, I had a couple of all right, scene one, take two, that type of thing. And then we all kind of did a
Yeah.
Boogie Nights uh, homage at the end. But those are the ones that you can see me in.
Awesome. Well, go, my listeners, go and check that stuff out. And Vince, thanks so much again for this. This has been great. I really appreciate
Thank you
it,
so
man.
much for having me, man. This was so much fun.
That is Vince Eustace, everybody. Talented guy and a phenomenal actor, and I could talk to that dude anytime for any length of time. I got to get that script written so that we can work together in the future, because that would bring me a lot of joy. I think we'd do something awesome. So check out Vince in Inside Amy Schumer, and most certainly cast him in your creative projects, for he is a phenomenal talent and a joy to work with. That is our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this and think you know a friend who would be interested in this podcast as well, you can send them to awesomedisaster.com. Has links to everywhere you can get the show. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, everywhere you get your podcasts. I want people to listen wherever they listen. And you can also get links to all my social media there as well. I am at willcarry23 on Instagram, at Comic Will Carry on Twitter, and you follow at Between Awesome and Disaster on Instagram as well. You can also send me a message and join my mailing list at awesomedisaster.com as well. Let you know when I am coming to your city to do stand-up, to do music, do live podcasts. If you would want to come and do a live podcast, I would love to do that someday if there is interest for that. So definitely let me know if you would come to a live Between Awesome and Disaster taping. And if you want to go and support the show a little bit further, you can go to our merch store on Teespring, as well as our Patreon, which is patreon.com/awesomedisaster. Those are available also at awesomedisaster.com. Next week is a fun episode as well. I can't wait to share that one with you. Got to interview somebody whose stuff I've enjoyed for a number of years now. So I hope you folks have enjoyed this. I finally got my appointment to get the updated booster, so I'm going to be super boosted and ready to take on anything that this fall and winter has to offer. And thank you all again for checking out my show and for your support. And I will see you next time Between Awesome and Disaster. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaxxed and boosted, and stomp out fascism. Take care, everybody.